Good day, everyone, and welcome to ICRA's webinar on Indian two-wheeler industry. Mr. Shamsher Diwan, Co-Group Head Corporate Ratings, along with his team, will take you through the presentation. The presentation will be followed by the Q&A session with the participants. I now hand over the conference over to Mr. Shamsher Diwan.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining ICRA's webinar on the Indian two-wheeler industry, Trends and Outlook. Just like many other sectors, the auto sector and the two-wheeler industry within the auto sector was also severely disrupted because of COVID. However, post the easing of lockdown restrictions and recovery in the economic activity, the two-wheeler sector has also picked up momentum, as reflected by a scale-up in production by all the OEMs across the board. Several factors have contributed to the pickup in demand as well. Besides stable rural economy, healthy demand from the festive season, and demand for personal mobility, all these factors, along with a relatively benign financing environment, have contributed to recovery in the two-wheeler sector. Notwithstanding the recovery, there are certain challenges which continue to be there, such as the rising case of infections again. To discuss more about on the outlook on the sector, I have with me my colleagues Ritu Goswami, Shrikumar Krishnamurthy, and Rohan Gupta for this assignment. I'll now hand over the presentation to Ritu to take us forward.
Thanks, Shamsher. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ICRA's webinar on the Indian two-wheeler industry. Over the course of next 15 to 20 minutes, we'll first give you an overview on the trends visible in the domestic and overseas two-wheeler market in the recent months, including performance. We'll provide you with our outlook on the sector before opening up the floor for Q&A. Starting off with the domestic market trends, the first slide shows the annual trend in the domestic two-wheeler industry volumes over the last 14 years. The world's largest two-wheeler market witnessed an 18% contraction in financial year 2020, a first in over a decade, which was driven by increased cost of ownership, a sluggish economy, and inventory rationalization by OEMs before the BS6 transition. The industry woes were compounded in fiscal 2021 as the year started with extended lockdowns in Q1, courtesy the COVID-19 pandemic. The first quarter saw a 75% YOY volume contraction, and even as there has been sequential improvement in volume since then, the contraction in volumes in Q1 underlie the 18% overall contraction in 11 months fiscal 2021. On slide 6, we can see that the monthly wholesale volumes were back in black by August 2020 and have represented a year-on-year growth ever since. The two-wheeler industry proved its resilience by ramping up to pre-COVID levels of production within 5 months of complete shutdown, despite extensive supply chain disruptions, including labor shortages and logistical issues due to sporadic lockdowns in key supplier geographies. Looking at the retail demand trend on slide 7, we can observe that the recovery pattern has not been as robust as the wholesales. Retail volumes had crashed to an all-time low in the first quarter as the pandemic-induced lockdowns caused dealerships to shut and customers remained indoors. With easing of lockdown-related restrictions and unlocking of the economy, there has been sequential improvement in sales in Q2, which had largely been pent-up demand, and in Q3, which got a boost from the festive sales. However, unlike wholesale, retail volumes have continued to be lower on year-on-year basis, barring December 2020, in year till date 2021. Notwithstanding the divergent trends in wholesale and retail offtake, the inventory level data, as reported by FADA, shows no unusual buildup at dealerships and provides comfort. Comparing the state-wise data in 9 months of fiscal 2021, barring Punjab, retail offtake has been over 85% of wholesale across all states, while agrarian states took the lead in recovery. In recent months, urban centers, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, Maharashtra have reported faster growth. Moving on to segment-wise trends, motorcycles, which represent 2/3 of the two-wheelers sold in India, have posted a better recovery. In the 11 months fiscal 2021, volumes were lower by 15% year-on-year against 18% for the industry. Among the subsegments, the entry-level 75 to 125cc subsegment has witnessed a faster recovery, backed by relatively resilient rural sentiments and possible downtrading by certain customers from 125 to 150cc segment. The premium segment, which is above 250cc, despite being less price sensitive, saw slower ramp up due to supply chain issues faced by the key OEM. Note that the sharp decline in the 125 to 150cc and growth in 150 to 250cc subsegment is optical. Honda Unicorn, which was a 150cc model, was discontinued in March 2020 and was replaced by a 160cc version, and this started getting reported in the 150 to 250cc subsegment, and hence the volume in this segment in 11 months show a positive trend. We are now on slide 10, which gives the wholesale trends for scooters and motorcycles and mopeds. Being an urban-centric product, a more severe impact of the pandemic and related restrictions, closure of schools and colleges, and work-from-home policies implemented by the corporates led to a sharp contraction for scooters in fiscal 2021. In contrast, mopeds, which are again a rural-centric product, saw the sharpest recovery this fiscal. We believe that this was led by personal mobility requirements and improved product feature following the BS6 transition. Let us now have a look at export trends. Exports accounted for 17% of total two-wheeler sales in fiscal 2020, and their share has increased to 18% in 11 months fiscal 2021. As can be seen from the exhibit, annual exports had been growing on a YOY basis since fiscal 2017 till fiscal 2020, before the pandemic broke the trend in fiscal 2021. Nonetheless, the recovery has been much faster than the domestic market. Over 90% of the two-wheelers exported are motorcycles. Exhibit 13 indicates that in the last 5 months, the export growth was in high double digits, with over 3 lakh units being exported per month. Limited impact of COVID in key overseas markets and preference for personal mobility were the key factors that supported faster recovery during this period. In terms of export composition, mass market entry-level motorcycles continue to dominate, although premium motorcycle category has seen the highest growth in fiscal 2020 and year till date fiscal 2021. Moving on to slide 14, which shows the geographical distribution of two-wheeler exports. The African continent remains the largest export market for Indian two-wheelers, accounting for nearly half of two-wheeler exports in 9 months fiscal 2021. The healthy pace of growth herein is led by the emergence of a big market for informal motorcycle taxis, while rising population, rapid urbanization, and absence of a reliable public transportation system is likely to drive the two-wheeler demand in the region. Factors like currency fluctuation and volatile crude prices remain key sensitivity factors. In Americas, Colombia remains the largest destination for Indian two-wheelers. Some of the larger markets like Brazil and Mexico remain underpenetrated due to strong preference for Japanese brands, like in case of Brazil, and local brands in case of Mexico. Major export destinations had witnessed a sharp volume contraction in the first half of fiscal 2021 on account of closing down of industrial and commercial activities. However, since then, many of the markets have recovered to pre-COVID levels. In Asia, the neighboring countries Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh have traditionally constituted majority of the Indian two-wheeler exports. Sri Lanka is facing a major forex crisis, and the government has banned imports till the end of 2021, which has impacted export volumes. Exports to Bangladesh have moderated due to regulatory interventions, and some of the Asian markets like Philippines are yet to witness significant recovery. However, in the medium term, export volumes to Asia are likely to be aided by a greater foray of Indian OEMs into these markets. We'll now look at how some of the key demand drivers are panning out for the industry. This slide summarizes ICRA's view on the various factors that drive demand for two-wheeler industry. As can be observed, most of these factors show encouraging signs and are expected to be positive next year. Let us look at a few of these indicators in detail. After witnessing a sharp contraction of around 7% in fiscal 2021 on account of lockdown and the pandemic, ICRA expects GDP growth to rebound to 10.5 to 11% in fiscal 2022, although on a low base. Overall, the vaccine rollout and improving economic activity, apart from government support measures, are expected to drive this growth. Furthermore, the rural economy remains a positive lever, supporting the recovery. The recent surge in infected cases remains a key concern in the near term. The surge has been continuing for the past 2 weeks. Several states are again resorting to restrictions to control the spread. While the government has eased the age limit for vaccination to all those above 45 years of age, the pace of vaccination needs to be accelerated and needs to quickly cover the remaining younger section of the population. In case the second wave of infection continues unchecked for long, it could derail the pace of economic recovery. We are now on slide 19. As the pandemic shock was felt more severely by urban India, the rural demand outperformed the same during the year. Supported by timely and adequate monsoons, the agricultural activity has remained healthy. There was increase in kharif sowing and substantial government procurement of the harvest. Job creation touched a record high under Manrega this year. As a result, the gross value add contribution from the farm sector outpaced overall GVA for the fourth consecutive quarter in Q3 fiscal 2021. The healthy farm sentiment and cash flows reflected in record sales of tractors during the year. The Rabi season saw sowing commencing in a timely manner. On an overall basis, sowing has been around 110% higher of normal levels in fiscal 2021, which gives hope for another season of healthy farm cash flows, which in turn could augment demand. The minimum support price hikes have been modest over the past 2 years, and the union government continues with its initiatives towards doubling farm income, which remains a positive over a medium term. A sharp and swift increase in the cost of two-wheeler ownership acquisition has remained the root cause of muted demand for the past 2.5 years. Starting in September 2018, from the increase in mandatory insurance requirement, followed by ABS-CBS safety standard transition in April 2019, BS6 transition in April 2020, and commodity price escalations in between, have cumulatively resulted in over 30% increase in on-road prices of two-wheelers in the past 24 to 30 months. Of the same, 15% increase has been in the current fiscal itself. Petrol prices have also escalated to nearly 30% in fiscal 2021, adding to the woes of price-sensitive mass two-wheeler commuters. High inflation hurts the real purchasing power of the consumers. As their average purchases become expensive, demand for non-essential gets deferred. The retail inflation remained above the prescribed RBI threshold of 6% till November 2020, impacted largely by the supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic. While it had moderated in December-January, it started inching up again in February 2021 due to the higher food and fuel prices. RBI consumer survey data indicates that spending expectations of urban consumers for non-essentials has remained negative throughout fiscal 2021. While social distancing needs made two-wheeler essential purchase for some, the pessimism regarding macroeconomy and income uncertainties likely made some customers defer their purchases. Moving to slide 23. The data released by CMI indicates that persisting high unemployment levels in certain large two-wheeler markets. The data has been highly volatile this year, possibly reflecting the high proportion of informal employment in India. Recent data, however, indicates that unemployment rate in urban areas declined in February in contrast to rural areas, which bodes well for the recovery prospects of especially the scooter segment. Exhibit 9 on this slide shows that the asset under management of ICRA sample of two-wheeler financiers increased on YOY basis throughout fiscal 2020 and 2021, despite volume contraction. This reflects increasing financing penetration in two-wheelers. With a sharp increase in vehicle prices, the demand of financing has also increased. Nonetheless, ICRA's recent survey of two-wheeler dealers indicate that financiers have become more cautious in the current fiscal and rejection rates have gone up. While ticket size of two-wheeler loans is small, increase in delinquency level, which had been sub 6% for the past 2 years, could constrain two-wheeler financing and impact demand in the near term. We now move to the last section of the presentation, which summarizes our outlook on the sector. This slide outlines ICRA's volume growth estimates for the sector for fiscal 2022. The motorcycle segment is expected to grow by 17 to 19%, with the low base, resilient rural demand, macroeconomic recovery, and exports to support this growth. The scooter segment is likely to expand by a higher 18 to 20%, given the severely contracted base, recovery in demand from urban centers, which would emanate from opening up of educational institutes, relaxation of work from home policies, and preference for personal mobility solutions over public transport. However, it must be noted that growth in all the key segments would be optically better in fiscal 2022, given the severely contracted base. However, a recovery to fiscal 2019 levels would be beyond fiscal 2023. As can be seen from the graphs on this slide, despite the healthy double-digit growth projections for the next fiscal, the industry would be closer to fiscal 2017 volumes. Going forward, while commodity price headwinds and increasing case of virus in certain states remain monitorable and may temporarily impact demand recovery, a low base, resilient rural demand sentiment, and overall improving economic outlook provides cause for expecting a better performance next year. ICRA therefore expects a 16 to 18% YOY growth in two-wheeler volumes in fiscal 2022. Downside risks to these estimates can, of course, arise from resurgence of COVID-19, leading to lockdowns and unforeseen supply chain disruptions and spells of unfavorable monsoons. In the medium term, we believe that positive structural factors like low penetration, improving financing environment, propensity for higher discretionary spending with increase in disposable income, rising participation of women in workforce, and rapid urbanization will drive steady growth for two-wheelers. The rural demand, backed by a strong government push, would also aid the growth profile of the industry. While the industry may be able to prepare itself for changes that are well known in advance, any black swan events like COVID-19 can dislodge this growth momentum. Having said that, we maintain our medium-term stable outlook for two-wheeler industry. The overall capacity utilization level in the industry had moderated over the past 2 years, but are expected to revive in fiscal 2022. Of the leading OEMs, Bajaj has recently announced plans to set up a new unit at Chakan near Pune with 1 million capacity. Keeping in view the industry growth outlook and current capacities, the overall capacity utilization levels are likely to ramp up to around 80% by fiscal 2023. In terms of CAPEX, after curtailing the same in fiscal 2021 due to the pandemic, the industry is expected to revert to normal levels in fiscal 2022. Leading OEMs like Hero and TVS have already given CAPEX guidance of up to 1,000 crore and 500 crore respectively for fiscal 2022 towards new product development and upgradation of existing portfolio. Credit profile of industry players remained strong despite the decline in revenue and moderation in profitability margins in the last 2 years. While volume contraction exerted pressures on the earnings, it was partly offset by the increased realization for BS6 compliant two-wheelers and other price hikes taken to pass on the other input cost escalations. ICRA expects that with recovery in volumes and revenues in fiscal 2022, operating margins will improve due to positive operating leverage. Since most two-wheeler OEMs have marginal debt and sizable liquidity, the debt coverage indicators remain comfortable. Backed by the stable growth prospects over the medium term, the credit profile of the entities in the industry is expected to remain strong. With this, we end our presentation and open the floor for any questions from the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritu, for a very comprehensive presentation. May I now request participants to please share your questions through the Q&A chat box, which would be visible at the bottom of your screen. And I'll request Rohan to maybe take them forward.
Sure. So Ritu, while we wait for the Q&A chat box to build up, if you could just take up some queries that we have received offline from our subscribers. So firstly, in terms of the presentation, you touched upon the various demand drivers. So one was obviously, if you look at it, they were split largely between the rural as well as the urban segments. Now, if we look at it, there was quite a divergent trend if we have seen in terms of rural doing well, urban not so great. So would you have any sense of the mix between rural and urban areas in terms of sales volumes, one for the industry, and secondly, in terms of segment wise?
Rohan, the OEMs don't share in particular the data regarding, the urban and rural mix. However, we do have some proxy data that we can use to kind of, estimate. So last year, FADA had come out with the data regarding the distribution of two-wheeler dealerships across the geographies. And they had divided this data into urban, rural, and semi-urban. So that data clearly shows that 72% of the dealerships are in rural areas and around 8% in urban and 20% in semi-urban areas. So this clearly tells us that, we have a rural tilt in terms of, dealerships. Of course, the entry-level segment in motorcycles, if we talk about segment-wise, is which is the 75 to 125 cc, is more of a rural-centric product. More premium segment bikes, given the price point at which they are being sold, is a more urban-centric. It's a lifestyle product, and it has been a tier 1 or metro-based product, so more urban. In scooter segment, because a scooter, again, it's a lightweight segment. It requires, infrastructure, road infrastructure, etc. Requirement is, a little more for the scooter. So scooters is also considered to be an urban-centric product. Mostly used by females, students, college-going. It's a second vehicle for a family. So that we know. Moped again is a rural product. It's a very small segment. Less than 4% of sales are in two-wheelers are mopeds. So that is also predominantly a rural product. So that's how the mix is.
Sure. So Ritu, we have a lot of questions related to electric mobility. So actually, electric mobility is the buzzword these days. Most research articles point towards two-wheelers being the first segment to witness a shift towards electric mobility. So if you could just touch upon how has been the ramp up in electric two-wheeler sales over the past 1 or 2 years? What would be the contribution of those sales to the overall pie in terms of the two-wheelers? And if at all it has been great or not great, what are the reasons for the same?
Yeah, so definitely, like you said, it is the buzzword. And it's a great, it's a technology that will disrupt the existing, combustion engine-based industry that we have. So the data which is released by SMEV shows that in 2020, around 1.5 lakh electric vehicles were sold, and around 90% or more than 90% are two-wheelers. So we believe that two-wheelers will be the first segment for mass adoption for electrification. And there are a lot of factors for this. So there are push factors and pull factors. I'll just briefly touch upon these factors. Pull factors for this, of course, the affordability of electric two-wheelers has become, has come within the range of a common man, with subsidies like FAME and then state electric vehicle policies announcing, other over FAME subsidies. State electric vehicle policies have also kind of announced subsidies. So affordability is one factor, which is a very crucial factor. And for two-wheelers, this works. So difference between entry-level petrol-based scooter and an electric vehicle post subsidies is now, in lower category, it is not there. In premium category, if we look at premium category electric two-wheelers, then there also the difference has become very small. So around 30% to 35% in case of, higher end electric two-wheelers. And for lower end lithium-based two-wheelers, this difference is almost gone. So that is one factor. Range annexity, which the people had, that how, after how long we need to charge, that has also been taken care of because the battery technology has improved. And 80 to 100 kilometer range, which is the commute requirement of an Indian for going to office and coming back, that range annexity has also been taken care of over the years. Infrastructure dependence. Now the two-wheelers that are coming up, they have detachable batteries. So you can just detach the batteries, bring it home, charge it, plug in, charge it, and then again put that battery. So that infrastructure, a commercial infrastructure requirement is not there for two-wheelers, and this is also the requirement. Of course, we know that total cost of ownership for electric two-wheelers is much lower than a petrol vehicle or petrol-based two-wheelers. So these are some of the pull factors that have definitely worked in favor of early adoption seen in two-wheelers. Push factors, of course, we have a lot of regulatory intervention. Government and states have been announcing policies, giving waivers on road tax, registration charges, etc., for purchase of electric two-wheelers. So that has been there for the past few years. Retail price of petrol is going up, so that is also making people think. And of course, environmental concerns are always there. People want to have a more greener kind of path. So these factors have helped. And so definitely there has been a pickup, but in the whole scheme of things, at this point in time, electric two-wheelers are less than 1% of the total two-wheelers sold in the country. So this is still a very low number. And based on the policies announced, ICRA estimates that around 8 to 10% of new registrations will be electric two-wheelers, say by 2025. This could be higher if the battery prices come down significantly, but this is conservative estimate as of now for ICRA.
So given that you touched upon the fact that the demand drivers for two-wheelers, electric two-wheelers per se, remain healthy with all these subsidies, etc., being at play. So in terms of the component manufacturers, should one look at the component manufacturers of the ICE two-wheelers with concern due to the ongoing electrification trend, or there would be no concerns regarding that?
This technology is a disruptor. So yes, you will have to adapt, and the vendor ecosystem or the supporting ecosystem needs to develop. There are a few components that will become obsolete, which are there in the petrol-based two-wheelers. But that is the name of the game, that you have to adapt and keep pace with the changing technology that is there. So a lot of OEMs have already, all the leading OEMs have tied up directly, indirectly with electric for development of electric two-wheelers, and they have been very vocal about it in the past 2-3 years. Yes, there is, there is a scope to improve, like battery manufacturing, which will be a very crucial component for electric two-wheelers. That infrastructure needs to be created in the country, and the government has, incentivized. And in terms of FAME policy, also they have put in a localization criteria, so to push OEMs to kind of set up these facilities within the country. So yes, definitely change will be required from the current OEM's part, and they have been actually working on it. Though commercially the numbers are not large, but in their interactions and in their commentary, they have all supported this electrification, which is the future of the two-wheeler mobility.
Lastly, if you could just give an average on-road price of electric two-wheeler. So while obviously there would be various variants depending on whether there's a premium category or it's a normal, a lower end category. But if you just touch upon a broad figures in terms of the average price for a two-wheeler, electric two-wheeler.
Yeah. So see, like I said, there are low-end models and there are like premium category electric two-wheelers that will be there. For the lower category, after subsidy, they are around 70-75%. We have two-wheelers that are equivalent to the petrol-based two-wheelers that are there in the market, popular to. So that would be entry level after subsidy from the FAME. And for higher end, after subsidy, that they will be touching around 1 lakh. Okay. So yeah. So since the FAME subsidy is only eligible to be eligible, the MRP has to be 1.5 lakhs. So even the premium category one would be lower than 1.5. But after subsidies, depending upon the battery capacity, we have around 1 lakh would be the premium category electric two-wheelers.
Okay. Another question that we've got is that commodity prices have been rising. Now OEMs have resorted to price hikes. So what we have heard is that from April onwards, also some OEMs are probably taking up price hikes. Yes. So firstly, how do you see the price hike impacting the demand in the short term? And what is your sense as to the margins of the OEMs, whether this price hike will cover the increase in RM that has been there? And what would be your outlook for the margins for the OEMs?
Historically, if we see with BS6 also, when the transition happened last year, most of the OEMs, thankfully, there has not been any, competition in terms of, somebody not passing on the price hike. With technology, almost all OEMs passed on the, increased cost of BS6 vehicles, and margins were more or less maintained. The frequent price hikes in January also we saw a price hike, and now in April, like you said, another round of hikes is announced. So more or less, the OEMs have been disciplined in this manner on passing on, at least the raw material price escalation to a large extent, I would say. So the margins this year, of course, they were low because of a lost quarter. Operating leverage played out, negative operating leverage impacted the margin this year. Next year, that will not be there. So that base effect benefit is already there. And more or less, given by historical trends, we believe that, they will not undercut each other, and reasonably the raw material price escalations will be passed down by all OEMs.
Okay, sure. Sure. In terms of demand, so what we have seen is over the past few months, as you mentioned, wholesale volumes have picked up. YY, they have shown a healthy growth, especially on the exports front. What we have seen is over the past 5-6 months, I think you reported a double-digit growth over the past 5-6 months, right?
Yes, yes.
So what amount of this demand that you have seen is pent-up demand in your sense, given that OEMs have ramped up their production capabilities? Or is this demand likely to sustain? So the question in many subscribers' minds is that what kind of demand is pent-up demand due to COVID being there earlier, and will it sustain going forward?
Okay. I think in exports will also, mirror the domestic in terms of, the time for which pent-up demand was there. I think by festive season, India's pent-up demand had also been taken care of, right? So by October, November, all the OEMs also reported that whatever pent-up demand was there from April, May, June was over in the next quarter. And mostly by festive, it was over. In overseas market also, if we assume that there were, restrictions in the first quarter, mostly, so that pent-up demand also was finished by end of the last calendar year. So they have a festive at, say, Christmas and all, if we say. So that pent-up demand is also gone. And I think we are what we are seeing now is the organic demand that has come back, especially because it has continued in January and February also. Traditionally, there is after December, which is the festive season there is a moderation, and that is seasonal. So that is the same pattern that we see in exports also. February is a little lower than January. But we believe that this demand that we are seeing going forward is organic demand, not pent-up demand.
Okay. A question I'd like to pose to Shamsher here. So, according to the policy draft for the PLI scheme, basically they say that it will accelerate overall manufacturing in the country going forward. So, what is your sense as to the impact it will have on the two-wheeler industry as well as the linked ancillaries?
Okay, Rohan. I see the broad objective of the PLI scheme is essentially to, improve the competitiveness of manufacturing sectors in India, with the auto component sector and the overall auto sector being also an integral part of that. Now, as you would know, nearly 70% of the components which go into an automobile are generally believed to be locally manufactured in India, while the balance 30% is assumed to be imported. And India's imports are primarily towards 3 or 4 key areas. One is semiconductors, electronics, and certain specialty chemicals, plastics, and alloy metals. So the idea behind the PLI scheme is essentially to look at avenues to increase the localization of the auto sector so that we improve our competitiveness by reducing the logistics, the cost spent on logistics, as well as the import duties and custom duties, etc. And at the same time, able to leverage on that competitiveness to increase our exports. So clearly, I think the PLI scheme is going to be a beneficial one for the auto component manufacturing sector as well. However, at this point in time, I think it's difficult to really comment as to which particular segments of the industry would benefit, simply because the detailed scheme is yet to be released. But given the commentary from the government, our sense is that it will have a balanced mix towards increasing localization as well as increasing investments towards manufacturing EV components. So an area where I think India needs to really leapfrog in the future.
So next question to you, Ritu. If you look at it in terms of performance of two-wheelers as well as four-wheelers, so what we have seen is four-wheelers demand has been pretty robust since relaxation of lockdowns over the past few months. In fact, they have seen a robust growth. Now, while two-wheelers has been relatively slow to take off, there has been some divergent trend between the two segments. So what would you attribute this to? Why two-wheelers has underperformed vis-a-vis four-wheelers?
I think so for that we need to look at who are the customers here. Of course, we know that pandemic led to a lot of job losses, of course, and especially in the contact intensive industries. So you have service industries, you have, hotels, restaurants, etc. So these are the people who lost their jobs. Bottom of the pyramid, as we call, was hit the hardest by the pandemic. And this is the target or the core market for two-wheelers. Vis-a-vis, if we say passenger vehicles, even the entry-level passenger vehicles, if we see, even though there have been job losses, but still not as severe as for the customers of two-wheelers. In cities as well in rural areas, there was, in the first quarter, there was reverse migration also, because there was so much layoffs by these contact intensive industries. So I would say that that is the crux of the matter, that the customers of two-wheeler segments are more price sensitive, and their income uncertainties were quite severe when they lost their jobs, and macroeconomic outlook was where it was at that point in time. So there was, like I said, in the RBI Consumer Confidence Survey also, we saw that, given that uncertainty, the future spending expectation became negative. So that is what has happened, and which has constrained. And at the same time, like we said, there was a 30% jump in the cost of ownership or acquisition of a two-wheeler. So at one end, your income becomes uncertain, and the other end, the running cost and the acquisition cost has gone up. So that has kind of had a double whammy for the two-wheeler consumers. For passenger vehicles, there was a personal mobility requirement, of course, in cities especially, drove a lot of demand. And the consumer was not that impacted. Yes, there were salary cuts. Maybe increment was not there during the year, but that consumer segment was not as severely impacted. And that is why there is this divergent trend.
Sure. Thanks. So Ritu, in terms of segment-wise, I'm not sure whether you touched upon it earlier, but in terms of segment trends, what we've seen is that over the past few months, entry-level segment has not done so well. So obviously, in terms of performance, my understanding as such would be that the entry-level segment would have a higher percentage of rural mix, right? Rural customers.
Yes.
So while the rural sentiments have been buoyant, they have been doing well in terms of cash flows, etc. What would be a sense as to why the entry-level segment has not done too well in terms of, given that the basic demand customer has done relatively well in terms of cash flows, etc.?
Yeah, in the last few months, yes, there has been a kind of a moderation in the entry segment that we are seeing, and but what we can link it to is, of course, the inflation that estimates that we have seen in till December, till November, they were, quite high and above the, I think we covered in one slide, above the 6% stipulated range that was RBI, both urban and rural. And in recent, but also the rural inflation has gone up, significantly. So this, when we talk about good, healthy farm sentiments, but there is also a large chunk of population which is, though constituted in rural population, but not exactly dependent on farm. They are not farmers per se. And when retail inflation goes up, it hurts them, and their ability and their purchasing power is kind of impacted. So food and fuel inflation in January and February, I think, is one of the reasons. Of course, in February, we have elections, so generally, we have budget. So there is a budget-related uncertainty that kinds of, because of which there is a curb on spending for some time. Everybody is expecting there may be some benefits coming their way from the budget. and this year more so. There was a lot of expectation. At the same time, in January, there was price hikes, like we said. Price hikes were announced by OEMs in January. And then there was February, where there was a budget-related volatility. So maybe those are, and together with the rising inflation level, I think those reasons are some of the reasons that kind of led to a poor performance across the two-wheeler industry, and mainly because 70% market is the entry segment market, so that market is well.
So the sense I get is that in terms of the delta increase in cost of ownership also, so for the entry level segment, that delta increase would be much larger vis-a-vis the premium segment. So that would have also played a part, right?
Yes, of course, that is there. So over 30% increase in a span of 24 to 30 months, and 15%, more than 15% in this year itself. When when there is 30% fuel inflation and the income sentiments are like, or actual income is YOY negative, I think that like I said before, is one of the reasons for kind of subdued offtake.
Sure. And so in the presentation, you showed that the AUM for financiers for this segment has shown a growth, has increased till December 2020. So what would be your sense as to the fact that are the financiers increasingly tending to a high risk category segment, or so what would be your sense in terms of the DPD numbers? Also, you showed that the DPD numbers have increased or are expected to increase by December. So why would the AUM and for two-wheeler financiers be going up? Are they not bothered about this segment or concerned as to the performance?
I think two reasons will be there. One, like we have been talking about, the average cost of a two-wheeler has gone up, of course, right? So LTV correspondingly has to go up. So essentially, even if the number of vehicles financed has not gone up, but that value associated with it would go up, right? Especially after BS6, that is there. And because the cost of acquisition has gone up, of course there is more people who are now interested in getting finance. Of course, we do believe that in our surveys of the dealerships, they have indicated that there is more caution, and maybe delinquency rate till September, there was RBI moratorium till August, right? So as it is, that there was a kind of a curtain over what is the underlying trend in the delinquency rate. Again, we said that the people who are opting for financing and the people who are the core customers for two-wheelers, they were hard hit by the pandemic. Their income levels were the ones which were hit. So that is why that is the underlying factor that is ICRA's expectation that maybe there will be an increase in the December numbers. That is an estimate as of now. But this two-wheeler, given that the ticket size is very small, has always been a relatively a preferred segment for financiers. This year is an aberration on all fronts. You see production, supply, financing. It is a black swan event that has happened. So, but overall, if we see over the past few years, financing has been improving only. So now it is 45 to 50%. Customer education wise, they are more aware of the advantages. And of course, the financiers have been very forthcoming. The captive financiers of the OEMs have come out with a lot of lucrative schemes for the two-wheelers, for the customers of two-wheeler segment to kind of opt for financing. So definitely, the financing is an enabler for two-wheeler segment. And this year, notwithstanding, that trend is a positive trend for the Indian two-wheeler demand. If we see, it's a big enabler.
Sure. So in terms of dependence on imports, so what would be a sense of the import dependence for the industry per se in terms of automobile components for the two-wheeler industry? as well as the fact that if at all there are any further disruptions in availability of certain components, like for example, we have heard about semiconductor shortage, etc. So what would be your sense as to the ability of the industry, the OEMs largely, to continue to maintain their production schedules in light of such any shortages that exist?
I think the first quarter and was a big learning ground for all the OEMs. In calendar year 2020, they realized that though lean supply chains are efficient, but there is something to be said about diversity in terms of supply chain network. So you need to have at least some second or third vendor. So in terms of localization, two-wheeler component wise, more than, I think Shamsher said that 70% is localized for auto industry. I think for two-wheeler industry, it's higher at 90%. So almost on an average, I'm saying that almost 90% of the components are locally manufactured or assembled, locally manufactured. In terms of, if we see the import content for leading OEMs, listed OEMs, we see that it's 8 to 10% of imported raw material that is there. So that is a big positive, that already the supply chain is highly localized. And of course, this semiconductor can be, for industry per se, it is a monitorable, but not so much for the two-wheeler industry. I think given that their dependence is limited here.
Sure. Ritu, in terms of the electric vehicles, as you're given quite an elaborate answer at the start. So what kind of role has FAME subsidy played in proliferating the expansion of two-wheelers, and would the extension of the same remain critical for the trend to continue?
I think the intention was always correct at that point in time, and I think we are all wiser in retrospect. And then this COVID is something that nobody could have foreseen. So they had the FAME 2 had a target of 10 lakh electric two-wheelers, and in 1.5 years till September 2020, when the scheme was 1.5 years old or at the halfway mark, it had achieved less than 2% of that target. So a lot of, we did some research on that, and we found that, the main reason for that was, of course, that the eligibility criteria that FAME 2 kind of put for an electric vehicle to become eligible, that was very restrictive. So apart from the localization, 50% localization criteria that was put on that, there was also, the lead acid based electric vehicles were totally excluded. In today's market, if you go out, 70 to 80% of the electric two-wheelers that are there are lead acid based. So a large chunk of electric two-wheelers or hybrid two-wheelers per se were disqualified from the FAME subsidy. And of course, apart from that, the consumer awareness needs to be improved, but that is a structural thing that has to be done over a period of time. But though the intention was right, there was, allocation of a good budget for the scheme. The offtake, as per actual numbers, has not been that good for even for two-wheelers, let alone other segments. And I think now with the other governments push on setting infrastructure, I think that is a more long-term solution that will kind of push the offtake for electric two-wheelers, setting up battery infrastructure facilities or vendor network for electric components. I think that in the long term, I think that would be the government's focus. And of course, upfront subsidies will always be required to make the acquisition cost comparable. But in the long term, if the battery cost comes down because of localization, that in the long term then the upfront subsidy requirement may not be there. So yes, there was merit in FAME 2 when it came, but it needs to be augmented, and the state electric vehicle policies that have been announced by the various states are trying to bridge that gap and focus on the supply side aspect of it.
Sure. So Ritu, I think that's it. In terms of the Q&A, there are no further open questions. So I'd like to hand over to Shamsher for closing remarks.
Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We hope you found this useful. In case you have any further questions, please do write in to us and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. Thank you once again for joining this call.